Hello everyone. Today we are going to present our final project that is about climate change. The members of the group are Priscilla, María Fernanda, and myself, Viviana. First, we're going to talk about the main causes of climate change, and in the next slide you will see some of these causes. Well, first we're going to talk about fossil fuels. As you know, we depend on fossil fuels for our energy needs. When we burn fossil fuels, this increases the emission of gases such as CO2 or methane. Something really interesting is that the world depends on fossil fuels for 80% of its energy needs. Because of this reason, it is really hard to switch from fossil fuels to other forms of energy. On the other hand, deforestation is another cause that affects climate change. As you know, trees help to regulate the climate by absorbing CO2 from the atmosphere. And when these trees are cut down, that beneficial effect it is lost and the carbon stored in the trees is released into the atmosphere. Another cause that affects climate change is breeding because cows and sheep produce large amounts of methane when they digest their food. And this industry has a really big problem because, well, we need it because we have to satisfy some of our basic needs, but at the same time is uh, generating a lot of these gases. Also, we have waste. When organic waste decomposes, the CO2 and the methane gases are created. In the case of methane, it is created when there is no air present, while with CO2 it is the natural product when anything rots in air. So I think that some of these gases have something in common that are the greenhouse gases, and I think this is the main contributor to climate change. And this results in the greenhouse effect. As you know, the greenhouse effect is provoked when the solar energy is absorbed by the Earth's surface and then reflected to the atmosphere as heat. Then, as the heat goes out to space, greenhouse gases absorb a part of the heat. After that, they radiate heat back to the Earth's surface. The biggest concern with this is that the emission of CO2 is about 75% of the global emission of greenhouse gases. So as you can see, we have a really big problem because we are producing more greenhouse gases and we are cutting down the trees that help us to absorb these gases.
Okay, now I'm going to talk about the effects of climate change. Well, first of all, it is important to recognize the difference between global warming and climate change, because some people use them as synonyms and they are not. The truth is that global warming causes climate change, and global warming consists of the increase in the temperature of the Earth. In the other hand, when talking about climate change, we're talking about the complex shifts now affecting our planet's weather and climate systems. Another important thing to know is that climate change encompasses not only rising average temperatures, but also extreme weather events, shifting wildlife population and habitats, rising seas, and a range of other impacts. And all these changes are emerging as humans continue to add heat-trapping greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. Now I'm going to mention some impacts or effects of climate change, and they are that, well, ice is melting worldwide, especially at the Earth's poles. And for example, in Montana's Glacier National Park, the number of glaciers has declined to fewer than 30, and they were more than 150. And also, this melting ice contributes to sea level rise, and global sea levels are rising 0.13 inches, which is around 3.2 millimeters a year. Then the global average surface temperature has increased more than 1.6 degrees Fahrenheit. And because of that, because of the temperature change, many species are on the move. Some of them are butterflies, foxes, and alpine plants, and they have migrated to cooler areas. Then we have the precipitation, and remember that precipitations are rain and snowfall, and precipitations have increased around the world, but some regions are experiencing severe droughts, which increase the risk of wildfires, lost crops, and drinking water shortages. And also because of those meteorological phenomena, livelihoods and economic resources are being disrupted, especially in developing countries. Okay, and these effects that I just mentioned are some of the big list of consequences that are happening right now. But if the world's population continue how it is today, other effects could take place in incoming years. For example, we have that sea levels are expected to rise between 26 and 82 centimeters or higher by the end of the century. That hurricanes and other storms are likely to become stronger, and floods and droughts will become more common. Then we have that some diseases will spread. An example is the mosquito-borne malaria. And well, finally, we have that the ecosystems will continue to change. For example, some species will move farther north or become more successful, and others, like polar bears, won't be able to adapt and could become extinct.
Now we have the possible solutions. There are different solutions to combat the climate change, and although it's true, some depends on large entities, there are many other solutions that we can use ourselves. First, we have the green energy. It is necessary to make change from the current energy model supplied with fossil fuels to one where emissions are as low as possible. To do this, we need to use energy from clean sources, such as solar or wind. These energies are known as green energies, and they could help us reduce the greenhouse effect. There is also a political commitment where it is necessary for all countries to make arrangements and establish measures to combat climate change. Although not all countries could have the same requirements, since the most polluting countries should be the ones that are most committed. Talking about the local consumptions, this must be a priority for all countries. The supply of customer goods of local origin would contribute very efficiently to combat climate change, since the emissions derive from the transport of this good as well as the production of packaging plastics. An extremely important solution is to provide more information and raise awareness and sensitize the population about the consequences of climate change. And this is achieved through education, both school and in our homes. Finally, another possible solution is the reduction in waste generation, since waste has become a real problem in the large cities of our planet. According to National Geographic, in a report from 2018, each year 8 tons of plastic end up in the sea, waste from the land. There is favored by an economic model where most products with plastic are disposable. And this is why there are currently many campaigns that ask us to change plastic for glass, a material that allows several uses and thus encourage recycling and reuse. We must have greater awareness of climate change, since the fight against it it's an opportunity to restore our economies and societies to achieve objectives such as a human right to health and healthy environment, fight against poverty, and much more. It is not only about saving our existence on this planet, but make it better. And that's why we need to make a change now. Finally, here are some of the references we use for our presentation. Thank you.